Dune Part 2 is the big blockbuster that's supposed to save the box office, but did that happen in this prior weekend? Today, folks, we're here to tell you what is going on with movie theaters and whether or not they're about to be saved from a terrible 2024. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the channel that just won't stop explaining entertainment, keeping you ahead of the culture curve, and waking up Holly Weird that, yes, indeed, they still need to make money. Helping us with this endeavor today is Culture Casino, always excellent and always ready for a great analysis. Culture, how are you today?
Fantastic. I'm doing very well, and I've now seen the movie twice, so I have some thoughts.
And I have seen it once. That makes thrice between the two of us. I did a review, Culture, the day that it came out, and I gave it a 7 out of 10, and I have a reason for doing that. You gave it a 9 out of 10.
Yes.
But I think in discussions prior to recording this video, you and I are pretty darn close on our thoughts.
Yes.
And so let's get into the box office, and I want to circle back, and I think our reviews are going to speak to what is happening right now at the box office. Here's what we've got, and please note, folks, that the type of commentary you're going to see in the trades today and tomorrow is going to be heavily slanted, and that is because they're attempting to save their industry. So pay close attention to that as we read this. This by Anthony D'Alessandro out of Deadline. Dune Part 2, sci-fi space worm epic rears head to $80 million after sunny Saturday. Here's what we've got. It might be raining in California and in the Northeast, but all Legendary Entertainment and Warner Brothers see is sun, 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 and that's from the rays of Dune Part 2, which posted a Saturday of $28 million, which indicates that this directed space opera is headed to an $80 million stateside start. And Nancy, that's Tartaglione, says the global debut is going to be about $160 million. Now, I want to give us some comparison, Culture, to what this looks like, okay? So we put this in the correct perspective. Dune Part 2 is doing fine at the box office. There's no doubt about that. But I'm going to give you some numbers from 2023 that I think are important for this video. Here we go. Top domestic box office openings for 2023. Domestic only, remember. Barbie, $155 million. Super Mario Brothers movie, $146 million. Spider-Verse, $118 million. Guardians, $118 million. Ant-Man, if you can believe it, $106 million. Little Mermaid, $95 million. And Oppenheimer, $80.5 million. Current projections right now are for Dune Part 2 to come just under Oppenheimer. So this would put Dune Part 2, had it come out in 2023, it would have been the 8th highest domestic box office opening. So there are some out there, Culture, who've been saying, this is the big one. This is going to save theaters. And I don't necessarily think that's true. It's going to be interesting to see how the movie holds over the next weeks. But this is not the giant blockbuster film that's going to suddenly rejuvenate the outlook for theaters. And that's sad. I wish it was, but it's just not quite. So, Culture, why do you think that is? Why do you think this movie is not reaching the highs? At one point, it was projected it might go as far as 95 million in the domestic opening. It's not bad, but what's holding it back a little bit?
Well, what's interesting is that's kind of, I was actually one of the people that was projecting the film to do better than it seems to be over the course of the weekend, which is a little disappointing. It does have a very high cinema score. I mean, it did come in at an A-, so the normies are enjoying the movie. Why do I think it's coming in lower than it should, or than expectations? Because I think it's a very dense film, and I think that the word of mouth isn't negative. But it's mixed. It's mixed with, this is good. It continues the story. Maybe some of the people, the patrons, didn't understand the film. Maybe they feel like they have to do homework and go back and watch the first film, which necessarily didn't overperform here in the United States or globally. The numbers were a little bit more subdued then, so maybe there's not quite the built-in audience that we all anticipated. But one of the bigger factors, especially if you're a lore person like myself, or one of the people I took with me the second time that I went to see the film, is that it doesn't stick closely enough to the source material. You have two ways to appreciate this film. You can be somebody who really thinks it's beautiful and enjoys it for what it is, and that's the score that I reflected in my first review, my spoiler-free review. was a 9. Why? Well, because first of all, it's almost impossible to get a perfect score, and second, the beauty of filmmaking, absolutely almost every aspect of it, outside of a few actors that were in it, delivered 100%. But if you're trying to sell me this as an adaptation, it fell very far short. So as I said during my review, you have three audiences you're trying to serve at the same time. You have a very normie audience that has really no experience with this material. They may have seen the previous film. You have the casual fan who may have read through the books, or at least, a couple of them, and got a sense for what they were going to see and didn't really, process much of that information. And then you have the third group, which are the hardcore fans or the lore people, and they're not digging this film at all. So I think you have three audiences. None of them are going to be satisfied because they all have to do a lot of work to appreciate this film.
Now, if we go to thenumbers.com, I want to show folks where they were projecting that this would be as of about 3 days ago when they were looking at the final tallies of pre-ordered ticket sales and all of that. And they essentially were looking at this landing somewhere around 90 million. And so that's why, we're not trying to be a wet blanket. We're not trying to be negative towards Dune Part 2. I mean, Culture said it's a 9 out of 10, and I gave it a 7 out of 10, and the 7 out of 10 here I think is very good.
Yeah.
But when it's missing by, let's say, 15% of what was projected just a few days ago, that's when you start to take notice and say, okay, well, where could that 15% have been picked up? Or why, what's holding Dune Part 2 back from possibly being even a $100 million domestic box office opener? And so what I've decided, Culture, and you tell me if I'm wrong on this. You and I were talking before we started the official video here, and it popped in my mind exactly what I've been trying to articulate. It finally hit, and that is that when I give this movie a 7 out of 10, I need to say that, to me, a 10 out of 10, for example, that, like you said, that's reserved for movies that are essentially perfect. Lord of the Rings, the original trilogy, is a 10 out of 10 for me. It's incredible. Is Dune Part 2 Lord of the Rings? No, it is not. And I think that for me, Dune Part 2 could have gotten to like a 9 out of 10 very easily had it just done one simple thing that I also think would have greatly expanded its box office appeal. And that is, in Lord of the Rings, we are faced with tremendous adversity. The stakes are very high. There is a sense of seriousness throughout the trilogy. But we also have the Shire. We also have the vision. We know what to fight for. We're trying to save the Shire. We're trying to save the potentiality for many Shires ahead, right? And the Shire is the representation of something paradisal. In Dune Part 2, that is missing. It needed 15 minutes somewhere, and you can cut out some of the bloat, but it needed 15 minutes of showing us the green paradise. It needed 15 minutes of showing us what a world with water would mean to the Freeman. It needed that vision of the heaven of the film. And that's what we have in Lord of the Rings, and I think that's what sets it apart greatly from Dune Part 2. I think that would have opened up the entire story to being more reconcilable to normies, to the average individuals out there who don't know anything about Dune, who maybe, they can't handle the kind of dystopian setting that Dune Part 2 is for so long, almost 3 hours. Culture, what do you think about that? And are there any other aspects you think that kind of pulled this down from being what could have been a $100 million domestic opening?
Well, okay, so you are 100% correct. I believe think about the very beginning of Lord of the Rings. I mean, the establishing shot is it kind of sets up the reason to fight for everything, right? This idyllic paradise, as you referred to it as. That existing all throughout this beautiful Middle Earth. But at the same time, I think that they would have done better with this film to lean in. And this is an epic in all of the senses. This Dune is an epic in every way. There is an epic romance that takes place in the middle of Dune. And this was the point at which to tell the story of this epic romance. And I think that would have also catered to normies, especially young ladies out there and older ladies as well, I imagine, and a certain amount of men who are touched with romance in their hearts. But I would say that that was one of the missing aspects that certainly would have served the film better as well. But at no point did you feel like there was real chemistry between Paul and Chani, which is inconsistent with the books. So there you go, or the book
Well,
specifically here.
if there's any part of it that's very lackluster, Zendaya, I think, and I called this out in the review, I don't think she did a good job. I felt like Zendaya was playing Zendaya. And
Mm.
she strikes me as someone who stepped out of America and into this strange world and then tries to pretend that she knows how it works. She did not feel part of the rest of the culture whatsoever. Like everybody else in that culture is part of that that diaspora of individuals participating in the movie. And then there's Zendaya, and she's doing her own thing. So that
Well,
was bizarre.
the only other person that I thought was playing themselves, which seems to be the norm, is Josh Brolin. I call him. He comes in and he's just Brolining all over the
That is true. Brolin has entered the stage. Yes,
That's right.
What's the name of the guy who he's the one who believes in the prophecy? He's the one who believes in the war Messiah.
Oh goodness! Now, of course, you ask me this.
He's the best.
Hang on.
He's the best in the entire
Yeah,
movie.
yeah. Oh my goodness, Stilgar, I think.
Stilgar, that's right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, and look, I mean, there are things missing from this, and we were talking backstage about it. I just want to mention there's a whole aspect of this that's missing from this film. It's inconsistent, and again, not to be too critical of the film during a numbers conversation, but they dwell too long on things that you suggest could be better cut from the film and replaced with things that would have mattered, like the fact that when Paul kills Jamis, um, he he inherits a wife. That was nowhere to be found. A whole lot of things, and entire characters were left out, including probably the most important mentat of all. So it's very strange. And Alea, however you would like to say her name, um, as Tom would say, is basically Schrodinger's baby. For the entire film instead of being born. It's very strange. But yeah.
On my scale of 5, I think is average because I try to do a bell curve on my rating scale, and so a 7 is a very good movie. There's no doubt about it.
It's better than average.
And 9 is on your scale. 9 is just nearly perfect, and so
it's extraordinary. Yeah.
We're not trying to be wet blankets.
No,
we know that there are a huge number of our viewers and in this space who love this film and think it is absolutely the movie of the year or at least top 3. And we're not trying to douse that with water, which is apropos for this movie. What we're trying to say is that there are reasons that this is not achieving box office numbers such as it possibly could have if there had been some minor changes made to it. And the reason that matters, Culture, the reason that this really matters, if this were a normal year, we probably wouldn't be so critical of the film. But that said, I want to show you what the rest of the weekend looked like because, folks, this is what theaters are having to survive through, okay? Everybody look at this. How much did Bob Marley, which is the second spot, how much did it make on a Friday? Less than $2 million. Ordinary Angels, which is a faith-based film, and I hear is excellent, and I may be going to see it because of how highly it has been praised to me, only $1 million. Chosen, another faith-based piece here, episodes 7 through 8, less than 1 million. Madam Web, which was supposed to carry the prior month, 800,000. These are not the kind of numbers that theaters can survive on. So what we're doing, so everybody understands, when we're talking about Dune Part 2, and we're being a little bit critical and saying, how could they have possibly gotten this box office higher? The reason we're doing that is there aren't many chances. Like this year in 2024, due to the Hollywood strikes, theaters get basically 1 or 2 big movies a month. And that's it. And if those movies fail, that's it for the entire month. And you try being a theater owner when there's a bust or a bomb or a lackluster performance, and you've got to go an entire month because there's literally nothing else. March is actually kind of packed for what this year's going to be like because it has Ghostbusters and Kung Fu Panda as well. And so Ghostbusters is going to need to pull it's really going to need to pull its fair part because Dune Part 2, as much as culture loved the movie and as much as I thought it was a great artistic masterpiece, It's not pulling the box office numbers that will save theaters. And every movie this year that has a chance at it, we're watching because we need that to happen, or else the industry is going to crash.
Yeah.
Culture, I don't know if you have been paying attention. I'm going to be doing a video with LW Ghost tomorrow on this. It looks like another Hollywood strike is coming.
Yes.
And that worries me greatly. That worries me very greatly.
Yeah, August could be another beginning of an end, to be fair.
And Culture, what we've seen is with the artificial intelligence program Sora, all of those people getting ready to strike, their jobs are in existential crisis if that delivers at the level that we think it could. So we've been playing around a lot with artificial intelligence behind the scenes at that park place, figuring out what the capabilities are once Sora hits, using the same programs, Dolly, which is the text to image version, and seeing what we can get out of that. We've been doing that on purpose because this is, I guess this is the big thing to know. You and I both thought that Dune Part Two was incredible visually.
Yes.
There might be a day in the next 2 years. This feels funky to say, but I think it's true. There might be a day in the next 2 years where a kid in a garage with a vision can create Dune Part 2, at least the visual aspects of it, using just an internet connection and a whole lot of time and maybe a super expensive subscription. I don't know. I don't know what this is going to look like. But you think about all the people who are involved in making Dune Part 2, and then you think, well, a kid could generate that through a lot of super prompting, at least, 30 minutes of it. It's like, geez, Louise, I mean, what is going to happen to the industry if that lands? So yet another reason that as we analyze these films and the box office this year, we need some big-time winners, not wieners. We need Barbies. We need Super Mario Brothers movies. We need Spider-Verses. We need some major wins because there's just not much underneath that. There's not a lot of lower-level films that can pull average-level box offices to keep the movie theaters afloat. Culture, your final thoughts on this before we wrap up today?
Really, I hope that Dune somehow overperforms our expectations on the last day of the weekend. I anticipate that this film is going to disappoint the studios who are silently, quietly hoping for $1 billion, or at least somewhere in the 900. Yeah, the $900 million category. I don't think it's going to get there. So I think that this film is going to fall short, but I think it will artificially keep the theater complexes alive, at least for a few more months, along with the help of, as you suggested, Ghostbusters. But then it's very quiet until we get to summer, and then summer will be cut short.
So, Culture, to bounce off what you said, I know I said last word, but that's I feel like that needs a response.
Yeah.
My thought now is based on the weekend and the global, and we're waiting on it fully, but I'm going to say that I think Dune Part 2 is likely to land somewhere around the $720 million mark for its worldwide total box office. So 720, and I think the budget for the film is somewhere around 200. So
just under,
so just under $200 million. I'm not sure what the marketing budget is, but I think if it gets north of 600, it's probably a profitable movie. Anywhere north of 600. So I definitely think that Dune is going to be profitable. I just don't know that it's going to carry the day for theaters. Is that fair, Culture?
I think that's fair.
You think that's where it lands? I mean, we might have egg on our face for doing such an early prediction, but where do you think it lands?
Well, I'm a little bit more optimistic than you are on the total performance. I think that it's gonna and this is very adjusted from where I was before, but I do think it's going to finish just into the 780s to 825. I think
Okay, so you're hovering around 800. I'm in the low 700s. So we're not too far off, but I'll say this, folks. If Dune Part 2 makes $1 billion, Culture and I will celebrate that. Like we're rooting for the film. We're just also trying to call balls and strikes. And that means that even when we want something to do well, we got to be realistic. We got to be fair. All right, folks, that is the analysis of the day. There is quite a bit more on the way, though, and this is a huge week for entertainment news and the kind of analysis that you just cannot miss. We have 2 competing town halls coming out this week. One from Bob Iger and the Bob Iger Company. I mean the Walt Disney Company with Abigail Disney at his back. And we have another town hall with Nelson Peltz and the Trian Group, both trying to convince investors that they are the ones to be on the board. And guess what? Both of those town halls happen basically around noon on Tuesday and Thursday. That means we will be covering one town hall live during the pro show on Tuesday, live streaming that for you and giving you analysis. We may go a little bit longer than usual. And then Thursday, we will have back-to-back coverage. That Park Place Live will be your preview, pre-show for that. And then we'll be going to Valiant Renegade with a special edition Renegade Online show where, again, it will be live streaming. I'll be on both of those shows. Culture, I have a feeling you'll be on some of those shows as well, and you're welcome to come on the pro show. But, folks, it's going to be a doozy, a dandy of a week when it comes to news analysis, especially on Disney. Don't miss it for a thing. Culture, what do you got coming out on your channel?
We're going to do a little bit of a review on the box office like we did here, only slightly differently. I imagine we're going to talk a little bit more about what's going on in gaming as more layoffs were announced prior to the weekend.
Sweet baby, what are you talking about?
Maybe that might be it. We also may talk a little bit about how the financial enterprises of certain entities may be, coming to... they may be coming to a reckoning, let's just say. So, pretty excited about that. A little bit outside of entertainment, but related.
There you have it. Folks, we surely do appreciate you being here with us and watching these videos and caring about the things that move our culture in different directions. We hope you have enjoyed your time. Folks, if you did, consider clicking like, share, subscribe, click it, stick it to the algorithms, it's the notification bell. Drop a comment down below, let us know your thoughts. And if you are a hardcore Dune Part 2 enthusiast and you think that we have been just absolutely depressing negative Nancys, well, you tell us that down in the comments. We'll listen, we'll pay attention. We try to be truthful every single time. Folks, wherever you are and whatever you're doing, keep learning, keep growing, and as always, keep having fun.
Floral, it's time for you to walk the plank.
What? Why?
'Cause you haven't subscribed to WDW Pro yet. Nor bookmark thatparkplace.com on your web browser to get great articles from great contributors.
What?